We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bub Reports with Dr. Kellan Bub. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
A pleasant good morning to our viewers and listeners, and we welcome you to this week's edition of the Bub Report. First and foremost, let me apologize for a bit of a late start this morning as we were having some technical issues on my end. I had to restart my system several times before going live today, and again, I sincerely apologize for that. Sometimes when technology doesn't work, it really doesn't work. And this morning was one of those times when technology was not being my best friend. With all of my the proprietary work that I did this morning, it was just not going well with some of the proprietary editing and so on that I was doing in advance of the show. So we really don't want to waste our guest time, because we do know that he's a very busy man, but he has availed himself of an opportunity to speak to us today. So, of course, before we get to our first guest of the week, we do want to hear from you. Where are you watching the program from? Are you in North America? Are you in Grenada? Of course, if you're in North America, it is a holiday weekend, and it is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday this weekend. And of course, his birthday is being observed, with Martin Luther King Day being commemorated tomorrow here in the United States. I personally will be participating in some service activities here in the DMV, mostly in Maryland, in observance of Dr. Martin Luther King's Day. And as we're having a conversation about immigration in the first segment, I want, folks in the Caribbean, whenever we come to the States, we seem to think that the benefits that we're able to derive, our ability to adjust our statuses, become green card holders, become citizens, have access to the U.S. by way of visas, that somehow it was given on a platter by United States governments in the 1960s. No, it was actually the activism and the work of African Americans, because many of us tend to stereotype African Americans. It was the African American struggle that was responsible for a reform in the Immigration and Naturalization Act. And that was a natural offshoot of the civil rights movement, right? That gave our people with our skin color, the right to not only immigrate, but protections against discrimination that existed in this country before the work of the civil rights movement. So it must be acknowledged that without Dr. King and without the activism of Malcolm X and John Lewis and Grenadian Audre Lorde, and all of those other great civil rights leaders, some of whom were killed in the Mississippi summer, some of whom were lynched. We are here today because of that activism as immigrants. So it's important that on this day, on this weekend, MLK weekend, that we acknowledge the work of Dr. King. This is not some abstract thing, because we are direct beneficiaries of the Civil Rights Act that resulted from their activism. I thought it was critical and important for me to make that point on the occasion of the celebration of Martin Luther King Day. So what we want to do, folks, is to take a quick break. Come in the room. Please make sure that you're sharing the program. And we're going to have our first guest this morning, Mr. Roland Otley, who is here, and he attempts to break down and make sense of Donald Trump's recent immigrant visa freeze and what may be coming next from Washington. So please stand by for that conversation. Hi, everyone. The Bub Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching. And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bub Report. Of course, last week, as we know, the regime in Washington, they announced a blanket freeze really of immigrant visa processing. And of course, immigrant visa processing affects those whose families are being petitioned for green cards, whose families are being petitioned for other forms of permanent residency into the United States. Of course, that is that will have a major impact on a family-based migration into the United States. So whether those of you here in the diaspora who perhaps might be in the process of, or were in the process of petitioning for a green card-based marriage, or petitioning to sponsor your relatives, whether it's your mom, your dad, of course, your siblings, moms who are sponsoring their children, things like that, that affects all of that directly. So what we want to do is to have a conversation now in the first segment of the program with attorney Roland Otley. Mr. Otley, welcome to this week's edition of the Bub Report. And of course, you know, you were here before and you gave us a warning. You warned us about what might be coming next with respect to the whole issue of the public charge rule. But the first question that I have for you here, sir, is, are you surprised by the scope and depth of this current immigrant visa freeze?
First, I want to say thank you for having me. And I want to say good morning to your audience. And I hope that the information that I will convey to the audience today will be helpful and thought-provoking. I would not say that I'm surprised of this public charge rule freeze. I hope that it doesn't continue like this for long. And I want to say I'm going to try to explain it for the CARICOM nations. Now, understand that Trinidad, Suriname, and Guyana have not been included in this ban because they have oil and Trinidad has gas. So they have already a good, business relationship. So they escaped the ban. Now, the countries that got a full ban, which are Antigua, Bermuda, and Dominica, they have a full ban both on their immigrant visa, which are visas that would allow them to stay permanently in the United States, and also their visitors visa ban their visitors visas have also been banned. On top of that, there maybe when the time comes when some of these bans may be lifted, they will be seeing a visa bond, which could be like $5,000 to $15,000 to get a visa. Now Antigua Barbuda, Barbuda.
That's Antigua and Barbuda, yes, sir.
And yeah, and Dominica, they have the citizenship by investment programs where you can pay money and get a citizenship for that country, and then that person who just purchased it could go visa free to various countries, UK, and an easier route into the United States, as opposed to their own home country. Now, while other countries also have this citizenship by investment program, such as St. Kitts, Grenada, and St. Lucia, they have not been hit with that non-immigrant visa ban because they have been doing it for a long time, and they have also been compliant with Europe and the United States, at least to some degree. Antigua and Dominica have not been. So that's why they're suffering a harsher ban. Now, for the other countries, St. Vincent included, I spoke to that audience yesterday in one of their local radio shows and discussed it. But I informed them that I had not yet had the time to go into it more granularly to be able to explain it to the audience, like how I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. Now, some of those countries that have the ban didn't get that harsher ban because they had the citizenship by investment program already in place, and they were able to negotiate, and with compliance and things like that. So they were able to get a lesser type of a ban. Now, for the other countries that does not have the citizenship by investment, they also receive the same kind of ban, like St. Kitts, St. Lucia, and Grenada, because they didn't have a citizenship by investment to use to negotiate, and all of these other countries don't have the oil and gas that Guyana and Trinidad and Suriname has. So they all, generally speaking, have lesser leverage to use to negotiate as well. So that's what's going on now. Some are saying that these bans are not really meant to be punishment, but to because they do understand the adverse effect of these types of bans because of the harshness on the individual country's economy. It's supposed to be a way to get some of these countries to comply more, so that they have means in place to allow the U.S. and European countries to better identify the individuals that are passing through these countries or who are coming to the United States through these countries. And that is really supposed to be, one of the big accomplishments that this ban is supposed to achieve, specifically for these CARICOM countries. They're right by the United States, and you don't want these countries to be too influenced by Russia or China. So there is a sort of a balance there. But overall, for the time that these bans are going to be in place, there's going to be some immediate economic problems because of these bans, and this is what everyone is concerned about, and it spans, through a very wide social spectrum in these countries. And I hope that they really won't be that long. The government is really trying to limit immigrants from the Caribbean from going to the United States and consuming U.S. resources such as health care and other public benefits that...
Yes, Mr. Hartley, stick a pin there on this so-called public charge rule. And I say so-called because to me, that's just a false pretext to suggest that, people who are eventually adjusted of status into green cards and things like that, that somehow they go to the United States and claim public benefits, when in fact, as you know, you're a lawyer, and of course you can guide me here, but as I understand it, if you are a green card holder, or if you're into any sort of immigrant visa category, isn't it the case that you are ineligible to apply for any type of federal public benefit, whether that is food stamps or whatever it is, housing, federal housing, things like that?
Yeah, some benefits, or most benefits would be available to someone who has a green card, but other benefits would require citizenship. But the government is concerned for those people who are coming through the visa route, the non-immigrant visa route as visitors, and overstaying in the United States and consuming U.S. resources during that period of time. That is one of the things that they're focused on.
But Mr. Hartley, how could they do that if you're an undocumented migrant in the United States, you cannot access any federal benefits?
Well, whatever benefits that they are able to access through the states, because the states, they protect immigrants and they use their monies to help the immigrants. Those monies are coming from the federal government as well. So this is what they're assessing in doing what it is that they're doing in terms of trying to force these countries to limit the people coming from those countries into the United States, and to also curtail the overstay and the illegal use of benefits. And some of these benefits may be healthcare benefits, because now with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, many of the public benefits that were available to immigrants are no longer available, and those funds have been transferred towards enforcing and continuing the mass deportation campaign, and this is what we're seeing right now. And what we're seeing with these visa bans is a different form of the public charge rule in terms of the effects of it and how it's working there. Here in the United States, when applicants go in for their immigration interview, they have to be very wary that they can be arrested. They also have to provide some very private information to the government to establish to the government's satisfaction that these individuals will not become dependent on the government for their subsistence. And prior to this term, we didn't have the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Trump tried to implement a more harsher public charge rule with Form I-944, and it ultimately fell apart. It didn't really last long, but with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the law is cleared, no form is needed, and the adjudicators at USCIS can be aggressive now even where you have an applicant, husband and wife, or children and parent or whatever, where they're going to be scrutinizing that whole public charge rule, even just on a pure application like that, where before, if you did file the I-864 with the necessary income, you were relatively good with that, and you would be able to get around the public charge inspection. But now, I think as we go forward, it's going to be more and more difficult. There's going to be more requests for evidence that you will have a time limit in which to provide. All that just creates a lot of stress in that whole process. And I've come to realize, dealing with so many people, that some people are just not willing to deal with that stress for that purpose. And so you're seeing it from all ends. And before, these CARICOM countries were basically outside looking in as to what Trump was doing, but now they are outside feeling what Trump is doing inside, and and wondering, like, how much worse can it be? And we're hoping that with the information and understanding that I'm trying to put out there for those listeners, that maybe through their elected officials they can cause some kind of change, or continue to pursue a reversal of these bans.
Mm-hmm. So let us get down to brass tacks now. A mom a daughter or a son in the United States, they use your services to sponsor. That's the term of art, to sponsor their parents in Grenada, or a parent in the United States. They're using their good graces to sponsor their children back in Grenada. They have now submitted all of the required paperwork. They've submitted the tax returns. They have submitted, evidence that of bona fide familial ties there, and now they're stuck in limbo. What happens to the fees that they have paid, the appointments that perhaps they might need to have? What advice are you giving your clients at this time, especially for those who have already filed or whose petitions are pending, as if I may?
Well, once their application is already in, it would depend on where it is. If you've put in all of the information that are required for those applications before the USCIS starts to ramp up its heightened scrutiny of your application. So in those instances, one would just have to wait and see how their application is adjudicated. But if I'm reviewing it, I would consider all the things that would normally need to be there and explain it so it's pretty clear that it's also a defensible application. Now, if some new evidence comes up, or USCIS finds new evidence, then we'll have to deal with whatever new evidence that is. Now, for those who have not yet filed, I am now informing them about the situation with the new way that USCIS will be adjudicating these applications going forward with this heightened scrutiny. Now, when you pay all your money and you've started the application, you need to be able to get any additional information within a short period of time. So even though your application is in, you may need to continue to get whatever else you need to get, if it's establishing your property value or whatever accounts that you thought you have that you haven't checked on for a while or what have you. You may need to go and check all those other investments and other arrangements and whatever else that USCIS may be interested in. Maybe you have a certificate that you don't have and you're trying to get another one to establish that I did take this training, so I have these skills, I have this particular skill set. So things like that, you would need to do those things, because those are the things that USCIS will be looking at. How old are you? What kind of health are you in? What kind of skills do you have? What kind of job history that you've had? And they'll make that whole assessment under a totality of the circumstances test to see if you are more likely to not be a person who's going to be dependent on the government.
Well,
And
but I accept, Mr. Otley, for those who are who have the ability to petition their relatives, they already have to prove that by way of your tax returns, by way of your pay stubs, by way of your bank statements. They demand so many bank statements as part of that process. So I'm just trying to reconcile what more do they want, because those requirements already exist.
well, you see, like many of the other things that Trump has tried to impose, how they actually use this new public charge heightened scrutiny, we'll have to wait and see. Okay. If they're using it in such a way that it's breaking constitutional laws or a well-established practice or so forth, then it can be attacked from that angle. But until we start seeing how bad the situation is, we really may not be able to formulate how we should approach it. What should we look for? What can we do to avoid it? Or what is it that they're doing that's unfair, that's wrong, unlawful or whatever? And then we could figure out how to deal with that situation. So this is just starting up, and we'll have to wait and see what those watchdogs who are looking at these things, what they're finding, and then go from there.
So right now everything is up in the air there, because again, and I also want you to circle back to something you said on a previous appearance on the program, and that has to do with the whole idea of sort of the immigration process, and you articulated the view that is one area of the Constitution that gives the presidency, whoever is the office of the president's holder, license to discriminate. And the reason why I'm bringing that up again is because the current White House occupant has always articulated the view that he does not like people from so-called S-hole countries. I mean, he said so. He said he prefers migrants from Norway and Sweden and Europe, pretty much. And of course, in his policy, he also articulated the view that he only wants white South Africans here, right? He has pretty much closed the door to everybody else, except if you're white from South Africa. So, Mr. Otley, the reason why I'm bringing this up, how much of this is also about race and racism, as it is about, and perhaps using this so-called public charge as the pretext for his real intention?
Okay, well, I want to make something clear. In the separation of powers, it's Congress that makes immigration laws and policies, not the president. The president enforces these things, and some of the times the president's executive orders, although they may seem to be very helpful and great, because Congress is sort of locked and unable to come up with the necessary laws, he can pass these executive orders, but they're always, most of the times, subject to some kind of challenge. So it's Congress that makes the immigration laws, and yes, they can discriminate as much as they want and put bans on all of these things. And whatever they say you need to do to get into the country, that's what you need to do. Otherwise, you're just not getting in. So they can discriminate in this way. And what they're looking at now, part of this issue with the CARICOM countries having to suffer this ban is because those countries are seen as a security risk as well through these either the citizenship by investment or because of their lax administrative immigration policies and procedures. So they want to, the U.S. government wants to make them beef up those requirements and comply with them, so they feel a bit more nationally secured. So that's another aspect of it. But I'm pretty sure that somewhere along the way, the non-Black applicants would fare better than the Black applicants, especially in Trump's administration, because as you said, and we've heard him, openly, make the statement about those particular countries. But I guess he discounts the other services that the Caribbean countries do provide in terms of healthcare and things like that in the country, in the United States. And these things will be a problem as well, and others will complain about these things. This has already happened with other policies that he has imposed that he had to walk back because they had adverse effects on his constituents. And so he modified some of those policies. If his true intent is for security and for economic reasons why these bans are imposed, then if the countries are showing a response that they're willing to comply and cooperate, then I think that these bans should then be lifted, and sooner than soon as possible. And we'll have to see, how exactly all of that play out, if they're going to up the ante as the CARICOM countries start, complying, and expect them to then absorb detainees and deportees from countries that are outside of their nationalities and CARICOM states. He expects for them to take citizens that are not theirs. These kinds of things, as if we've seen in other countries, could be quite disruptive to those smaller countries. And that's something that I think whatever diplomatic dialogue that could take place, where these countries understand and they have evidence to explain the adverse effects of taking on deportees like this, to help out the United States and to help Trump out with his mass deportation projects. They have to make the attempt, at least try to see what can be done. I'm sure that you would agree with that, what I'm saying in terms of these countries being able to speak up and explain, why they would comply this way, that way, and what limitations they have in trying to comply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and funny you raise this, because that is something that we will be treating with in the next segment of the program. So, Mr. Otley, again, for those who I suppose now is just a wait and see game for those who are in the process of petitioning for their families, or who have already petitioned and who have their cases pending.
Yeah, I mean, and because most of the countries still have the visitors visa available to them, understand that these visas will be under heightened scrutiny as well. So even though they are available, it's not like you're probably not going to be able to obtain a visa as easy as it was before these bans were put in place. And I don't know if they are planning to impose the visa bonds the whatever amount, 5,000 to 15,000, in all of these other countries that still have availability of the visitors visas. So that might be, such a tremendous burden that many who would otherwise be able to travel now cannot do so, simply because they've imposed this bond to make sure that if you are leaving your home country, in order for you to hopefully get your bond back, you will have to return back to your country. So, how that's going to work if they do implement that would be something we'd have to observe.
If we have to watch the space, as they say. Mr. Audley, is there anything else that you want to talk about in relation to this immigrant visa freeze that perhaps we did not address that you want to address?
Well, I don't know how long it's going to last. It's stated to be indefinite and so forth, but it supposedly has some kind of a target and some kind of an endpoint, hopefully. But it's going to have a whole lot of social effects throughout the Caribbean countries. Now, much of the income from some of these countries come from those individuals who've received their green card and now are able to travel to the United States, find work, and then send money back to whatever Caribbean country they're from. And that is an important part of how families in those countries are able to go from a day-to-day kind of a lifestyle. When you don't have individuals able to go out of the Caribbean country, that could be a large part of a decline in the gross national product for these countries, and other things as well. Like, what are you going to do with all of these nurses that you're training that you now can't get visas to go to the United States to work? How is that going to affect the country and the social environment there? And in addition to that, accepting deportees that may not be the best citizens, and those people who would ordinarily travel from the Caribbean to the United States to buy goods for their businesses and things like that, those things are all going to be disrupted. So we really would have to see the full extent of what people are experiencing as a result of these visa bans. I'll continue to follow through on this to see how disruptive this is to the region.
And of course, Ms. Hartley, one of the things that you just talked about there, are you suggesting that perhaps the non-immigrant visa now, that the non-immigrant visa, they've already put these bonds in place, for Antigua and Dominica, while still demanding that Antigua and Dominica accept third country refugees. So I'm not too sure what deck of cards Antigua and Dominica are negotiating with. But that aside, are you suggesting then that perhaps that is something that we should be looking out for?
In terms of the bonds
the non-immigrant visa now. That's those who come here, as you said, to purchase stuff, to repatriate home, things like that. Are those on the visitor visa? Do you think that the visitor visa is something that they might be targeting next?
Well, I think it's already been targeted. It's just that it hasn't been banned. And they, it's like the gun is pointing at you. You don't know if they're going to shoot you in the toe or they're going to shoot you in the head. That kind of thing. Don't think that, oh, you have the visa, then everything is all good. As I just said, I think that any applicant for a visa, although it is available, is probably going to be more difficult than it used to be before this ban. And and this whole thing about this bond is another problematic aspect of it. So it's not your regular visa application that used to be before 2026. We're really going to have to see how they are going to actually use it and what kind of effects it's going to have on each country's economy.
Mr. Otley, I certainly, as an immigration attorney, I do not envy immigration attorneys and diplomats in the United States at this time. I really don't. You guys have to deal with a lot, and sure your clients do. For the folks who want to reach you, can you articulate your website? And perhaps, I know that you also indicated that there is an immigrant advocacy association, I believe, that does the work of really educating immigrants on perhaps their rights, to the extent that this regime is following rights. That's a question that's left out in the cold.
Well, one of the things that I didn't get to speak on was the separation of powers and how the Supreme Court and the federal courts have stepped up to curtail some of these disingenuous methods that the Trump administration would like to employ to effectuate this mass deportation campaign. They tried to utilize the military to enforce immigration. The Supreme Court said no. They also tried to implement nationally expedited removal. Expedited removal, usually when someone is coming in through the port, the CBP officer could check them and investigate them, and if they find that they're inadmissible, they could turn them away. They don't even get to see an immigration judge. But if they're already in the United States, they've been entered in and so forth, and they come up with the USCIS comes up with a reason to deport them, well, then they would ordinarily go through the immigration court, where they would have an opportunity to be heard by the immigration judge and to appeal and so forth. They try to take that away, and the Supreme Court stopped that. Now, the Supreme Court this year, maybe in the summer, they will make a decision on birthright citizenship. Now, other federal courts have shown, lower federal courts and appellate federal courts have all unanimously gone against having the repeal of birthright citizenship, which is a constitutional right, because the Trump administration signed an executive order. So we're going to be seeing that now. How these other things are going to play out and how they're going to work. We would be able to look at some of these federal courts to see maybe how they may adjudicate on other important issues that would likely be consistent with other decisions that they've made. Unfortunately, we're living in a very uncertain immigration times, and it's very disheartening to have to tell clients that, because I really don't have, and other attorneys practicing immigration don't have a definite expectation for anything, because you really don't know how the whole Trump influenced agencies will function.
But finally, because we do have to get to the next segment, on the whole question of this sort of papers, please enforcement here, where they're just, well, quite frankly, the Supreme Court already gave them permission to do that, where you can just racially profile people. They have picked up several citizens, U.S. citizens that is, on suspicion that they're in the United States illegally. They have arrested Native Americans because they're brown, on suspicion that they are illegally Native Americans. Let's think about that. People who have been here originally, before the colonizers came here, right? Many of them arrested illegally because those ICE folks are saying, well, you have an accent or you look brown, so therefore, we have a right to determine. And right now, I mean, so for those of us who are legally present here, whether you by way of citizenship or green card, are there any other are there any legal recourse for you? Because the Supreme Court seemed to say, yeah, you can just go ahead and racially profile people and arrest people at will. So, for example, if somebody gets arrested, somebody who is a citizen or green card holder gets arrested because they say they don't believe that you are either of those things, what legal recourse does one have?
Well,
Do they
you
have
have.
any legal recourse?
Yeah, they do have a legal recourse, like you would have in the states. This is on a federal level, so they would have to meet the federal criteria for stopping them, taking them into custody, and whatever documents that they may have or not have to establish their status in the United States. They may not be able to produce it right away, and some of these agents are, well, they're going to do what it is that they want to do, and then you're left to, file whatever lawsuit and show whatever discrimination that you experienced and so forth. And that would be your recourse. Another decision that the court made was to either schedule the Venezuelans that have been detained for bond hearing, or to allow them to go free. I mean, and this is one of the things that these nonprofit organizations are suing the government for, because people are being detained for a long period of time without any bond hearing so that they could be released. And they're trying different mechanisms to get people released from this whole thing. I mean, I think now that the Trump administration, from one report that I was reviewing, indicated that the Trump administration is expecting quotas from ICE agents now, and so they are expecting to have more cases of denaturalization, where they strip you of your U.S. citizenship, and these are all kinds of mechanisms that's going to add to the number of people that Trump is able to deport during his tenure in office. And he's hard at work coming up with all different ways to be able to achieve this. And those that under his under his control are doing all what they could do to make sure that these things happen, in terms of fulfilling that campaign promise of mass deportation.
Absolutely, Mr. Otley, it's always a pleasure having you here, so that we can make sense of these issues. So thank you for appearing on the program this week, and of course your website, again, for the benefit of our audience, those of you in the diaspora. Mr. Otley can be reached at, that is, let me pull up the website here, Mr. Otley. I don't want to.
It's the Otley Law Firm, theotleylawfirm.com.
Theotleylawfirm.com. And of course, your email address is, can they use the ROTTLEY at TOLFPC.com as well?
Well, it's preferable to use the one for office at TOLFPC.com.
Office at TOLFPC.com. Mr. Otley, thank you so much for appearing on the Bub Report this week.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and honor to be here to use your program as a way to convey important information to your listeners. I greatly appreciate you allowing me to do so. Thank you and have a great day. And that goes out to all of the listeners as well.
Yes,
God bless
absolutely.
You all.
Absolutely. You take good care, sir. Viewers and listeners, of course, that was U.S.-based immigration attorney Roland Otley, who attempted to make sense of this new indefinite immigrant visa freeze. And I do believe that will be indefinite. I have a strong suspicion that this would last until the end of this current regime in Washington. But we'll see what comes down the pike after this. So viewers and listeners, what we want to do now is to take a quick break and come back for the panel segment of the week. So please stand by for that. Viewers and listeners, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bub Report. And of course, We thank you for staying with us. And of course, if you're watching us, whether it's over on our social media platforms, whether that's on YouTube or Facebook, do us a favor by liking and sharing this week's program. As a reminder, the Bob Report can also be seen later this evening on WPG 10 television in Grenada and the Eastern Caribbean, as well as on Wednesday at 5 p.m. on the Grenada Broadcasting Network. So we thank you for staying with us. And of course, for the next segment, folks, I do promise that we will get to your questions, because this is a very important segment that will be affecting Grenada and the Caribbean. So we do want to get to that. And of course, the current White House occupant in Washington campaigned on carrying out, quote, the largest deportation, unquote, in U.S. history. But many countries do not accept nationals deported from the United States. In reaction, the regime, at an unprecedented scale, has pursued third country removals, deporting people to countries that are not their countries of origin or last habitual residence. In some cases, this means deporting people to countries, some that includes the OECS now, and even continents where they have never so much as set foot. Some of them have absolutely no cultural connections to these places. Now, some examples include around 350 migrants were deported to Panama, including many of Asian, Middle Eastern, and African origin. They have no cultural connections to Central and South America. 200 migrants deported to Costa Rica, including many European, Asian, Middle Eastern, and of African origin. 5 migrants deported to Eswatini, of course, formerly, I can't remember the name of that country now, but all of Asian and Caribbean origin. Eswatini is a country that is within the borders of South Africa. 8 migrants deported to South Sudan, all but one of whom were Asian, Caribbean, or Central American origin. All migrants facing deportation are meant to be protected by the United Nations Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhumane, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, under which a country cannot remove a person to another state where there are substantial grounds for believing that they would be in danger of being subjected to torture. That is a refugee convention rule. However, not only has this regime been deporting or attempting to deport migrants to war-torn countries like South Sudan and Libya, which have records of severe human rights abuses, but it has also not been giving those facing removal proceedings any meaningful due process. Okay? However, the use of third country deportations has drawn scrutiny after dozens of West African migrants sent to Ghana, for example, and Equatorial Guinea were forcibly repatriated to their original home countries from where they fled in the first place, despite having U.S. court-ordered refugee protections. Now, Reuters, that's Reuters news agency reporting, highlights the case of Ribatu Kayute, a Sierra Leone national who was deported to Ghana in November of 2025 and detained before being sent back to her home country, illustrating the human and legal complexities of these removals. Kayute, 58, fled Sierra Leone during the 1991 to 2002 civil war, fleeing for her life, and lived in the United States for nearly 30 years. Now, after being detained by U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement in July of last year, she applied for protection against deportation, citing fears of torture linked to her father's political opposition. Although an immigration judge granted her asylum request, she was deported to Ghana in November, where she was held at a hotel for 6 days before being forcibly sent to Sierra Leone. Now, there is video footage circulating online of her being dragged to a van, and that video went viral, sparking international attention. Now, human rights advocates argue that this practice of third country deportations violates international law, prohibiting refoulement, which forbids sending individuals to countries where they face serious harm. Critics contend that third countries are being used to circumvent US and international protections. Lawyers and advocates say many deportees had valid asylum protection claims. Some were targeted due to their political beliefs, sexual orientation, or gender-based persecution. Video evidence and eyewitness accounts suggest that many were given no opportunity to contest their forced deportations. US courts have upheld the administration's authority to deport individuals to third countries, while legal challenges proceed. Many of these folks have legal challenges before US immigration courts, creating concerns over compliance with international human rights norms. Of course, and this is where this conversation comes in this week, because the Caribbean has now been co-opted into this third country scheme. Well, except for Grenada, because the Prime Minister indicated that they have not decided as yet. So we're closely watching the space to determine how Grenada will rule on this matter. We also understand that OECS countries held a meeting at the OECS level where this issue also came up. But we're going to have a conversation about it on the program this week nonetheless. And joining me for this week's program is the former Deputy Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, no stranger to the Bub Report, Mr. Sam Conda. Mr. Conda, welcome to the program and Happy New Year to you, sir. We also have Dr. Curlin Gilchrist, who's joining us from St. George's in Grenada, Dr. Stephen Fletcher, who's also joining us from Grenada, and Mr. Peter Wickham, who is, I suspect, given that the elections were just announced in Barbados, Peter, that you're probably on a flight heading back to Barbados at some point. But Mr. Wickham is also here joining us. And gentlemen, of course, you've heard the intro, and the reason why I established this context this way is because I believe framing is important. Framing is critical. And I want us to follow through on that framing here. And I want to begin with Peter. Peter, we've seen many countries in the OECS, and of course in the wider Caribbean as well. I believe Belize is part of that too. Mm-hmm. They have all agreed with this sort of third country deportee business that the regime in Washington is dictating to other countries. Let us first and foremost talk about the international law challenges and issues here with this particular policy. Peter.
Yeah. Hi, thanks. I don't know if I'm the best person to deal with the international law aspect of it, but just to say that a significant component of this thing is voluntary, and that's something that we need to remember. When the United Kingdom wanted to initiate a similar type of arrangement with Rwanda, it was based on the agreement of the Rwanda administration to accept persons, and it was also based on an assessment that the United Kingdom had done that Rwanda was a fit and proper country to receive such persons. And there was also a financial component because Rwanda stood to make some money from their exercise. I'm assuming that similar realities exist with relation to the Caribbean situation, and it can be illegal under international law in the context of a situation where countries agree that they're going to accept people. It may very well be improper, and I suspect that it is, because you are essentially deporting a person to a country that the person has no association with. So there's an impropriety of it. But in as much as the country agrees to take people, that is a factor. The other thing is in the UK, migrants would have had to some extent to decide whether they wanted to go to Rwanda or just spend years and years in this system being, going around in a circle. So to some extent, they may have said, well, look, this is better. While in this instance, again, we don't know what the conditions are. So there's still a lot of questions that have to be answered. I think we have to remember that the countries in question, Dominica, Antigua, etc., have a certain ability to say no. I don't know how frequently they will use it. And I think that that is, one could say, the positives of it, if you were to look at it. The functional reality of it is it's a threat. It's a weaponization of the ability to send someone to a country. You're threatening a migrant. I'm going to punish you by sending you to Antigua because you have behaved improperly. I'm going to punish you by sending you to Dominica. It speaks volumes about the extent to which you view the migrant A and also B, the country to which you're sending, because the idea that you could punish someone by sending them to Antigua or Dominica and whatnot is a bit of a stretch. And then the other side of it is that it's a threat that's basically being used to encourage Caribbean states to fall in line with respect to U.S. policy in other regards. So the Cuban nurses and doctors issue is something that troubles me greatly. And you basically said, look, you need to stop this or else we will punish you in other ways. And there's a clear punishment that's coming through. All of these things are unfortunate. There is an absence of multilateralism with regard to the discussion of these issues. There is a clear bilateral type of preference, which says that America likes to do this because that's the best way that they can threaten and punish people. And, I think that all of us are asking ourselves, now, what questions or options do we have really in international relations? Barbados doesn't do this, but certainly St. Kitts and Grenada and so on, Dominica and Antigua, they have a citizenship and investment program, which was a part of their policy, a legitimate part of their policy. And, they're basically being told that you need to stop doing a lot of things that you're doing to generate revenue. And then, just or alternatively, you'll be punished. And the alternatives in a lot of instances are not clear because you look at a place like Antigua or St. Kitts, there's no future in agriculture. Tourism, you're competing with several others. So what exactly is the product that these countries are supposed to sell to be able to pull the economies out when they fall in line with all of these issues? So this is my initial concerns. As I said, we could look at it in a sober tone and say that, yeah, it's like the Rwanda scheme with benefits and negatives, or alternatively, we could just look at it as a vulgar threat that the White House is using and a new era in the international politics.
Mr. Conda, you've appeared with Mr. Wickham on the Bob Report previously. He's articulating the view here that this is a vulgar threat. Certainly, you're one of the current Prime Minister of your country agreed. In fact, they entered into an MOU with the U.S. To proceed with this third country deportee situation here, with the exception of Haiti. I thought that was a curious question there. But let's get into it. So your former Deputy Prime Minister, you served in the cabinet of your country. React to this third country deportee scheme that St. Kitts and Nevis agreed to enter into with the United States.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an honor for me to serve with these distinguished gentlemen here this morning in this panel, and I want to thank you for inviting me. I think I wholly agree with the statement made by Peter so far. I think that covers it. And I just want to say that to repeat, I think you said it on the show already, that the OECS had a meeting of heads in I think St. Vincent or St. Lucia. Yeah. And I think that is the correct thing, because this is a serious threat. I want to quote from a gentleman, I think is Marilyn Butte, who said that the United States is demonstrating both the willingness and the capacity to act against the region in ways that could inflict severe economic damage. This is not a fight about symbolism. It is a test of whether the Caribbean nation can exercise their sovereignty without jeopardizing economic survival. That basically is what is happening here. And I think the OECS has made a start, and I think we have to further look at it at the CARICOM level. I know CARICOM is due to meet here at the end of February in St. Kitts for the annual meeting, and I'm sure that this this is going to take the agenda. This is going to be the main agenda item, and we want to see that that we agree to this. Well, not agree, but to discuss it in ways that could benefit our countries. In fact, Peter referenced Antigua and St. Kitts in terms of agriculture. You know, the Caribbean imports maybe 95% of the agriculture and other goods from the United States, and so the United States also has the in a position to weaponize the banking system, corresponding banking system, which is a great issue for us, and also the in terms of our people sending back remittances to our country. Those are three main areas that we have to consider seriously. The Caribbean has already engaged in what they call, it was 25 by 25, that is reducing the imports by 25% by 2025. We have not made much progress on that, but all these things we'll have to take into consideration. But we have to be strategic in terms of how we deal with these matters.
How do you react to your Prime Minister's handling of this issue, sir?
Well, initially he said that they'll come to a non-binding agreement, MOU, because I think that was the initial stage. That was followed by a meeting in St. Lucia with OECS heads, because no Caribbean country could go and negotiate. It cannot be done that way. We have to negotiate as a region in terms of how we are going to respond to this.
Don't you think, though, that CARICOM is just moving really slow on this? The fact that that policy was announced, I mean, all of these pressures from the United States, and only now we're having meetings to determine how we are going to treat with what's coming out of Washington, all of these edicts that are coming from the White House.
Yeah, I think it's been slow and negligent. I mean, we had the views long time ago. They were concerned about our CBI program, and they consistently asked about us reviewing it. I mean, you know, any program that we take for the advancement of the region is going to be a cause of concern for the developed countries, because they want us to remain as mendicants, coming cap in hand. And so anything you do is going to be at their mercy. But we cannot give them any excuse to do that. And long time we have been slow in terms of amending, recommending, modernizing our CBI program. So now we have to make haste and get these things done.
What do you make of, and then I want to get to the rest of the panelists, what do you make of Prime Minister Drew's announcement explicitly stating that he does not want any Haitian nationals? I found it, quite frankly, offensive, Mr. Condor, extremely offensive, because again, it's a continuation of these very negative colonial tropes, colonial stereotypes that we as people of African descent have against our brothers and sisters in Haiti, mind you, which was the first Black republic. The only country in the Western Hemisphere that was able to fight Europeans and say to them that we don't want you here, right? And we continue to treat our Haitian brothers and sisters like this. I visited Haiti several times. I have Haitian friends, okay? And I make a very intentional decision to visit Haiti and not the Dominican Republic because of how they're treated there and because of the racism in the DR. But what do you make of that sort of, quite frankly, xenophobic and prejudicial statement on his part?
Well, I am on record
about it. I'm sorry.
I am on record as being really disgusted with that. In fact, CARICOM in general has been just paying lip service to Haiti. You know, we have not done anything to come to the cause of our CARICOM brothers, our brothers and sisters in Haiti. I mean, the first country that tried to liberate Black people. And It's like one guy was telling me, the more things change, the more they remain the same. This is a continuation of the punishment. And I've said that as late as Friday on a program, that this is really objectionable. It is really sad, and that our country could or our Caribbean region could take a position like that against Haiti.
Absolutely. Now let me.
That is just not acceptable.
Yeah, it really was disgusting, quite frankly. And I could use stronger words, but I won't. But let me bring in the other members of the panel here from Grenada. That's Drs. Fletcher and Gilchrist. Gentlemen, good morning to you, and a Happy New Year to you, gentlemen. The framing, well, so first and foremost, even before we get into the business of the framing and whatnot, the Grenada government, they have not been leveling with their people on this issue. In other words, the only time initially when they had the regime in Washington announced that they approached Grenada, Grenada said no. That was sometime last year, I believe. And now they have circled back apparently with this issue. But the regime in Washington, the government of Grenada, and again, I use the word regime deliberately and intentionally here. The government of Grenada, however, they've only communicated with the people by way of media interviews on this when asked. In other words, they have not volunteered information. Why do you think that is? Brother Gilchrist or Fletcher, you guys want to take a stab at that? If you were advising, of course, Dr. Fletcher, you were a diplomat. If you're advising the government of Grenada, is that a type of communication posture that you will tell them to adopt?
Well, good morning, Dr. Bob. Good morning, other panelists. Let me, of course, wish everyone a Happy New Year. I think we are meeting the panel for the first time. And certainly your viewers and listeners, I also want to extend Happy New Year greetings, health, prosperity. And at this complex time in our history, that we remain calm, sober, and very strategic in how we move and how we negotiate our position. With regards to the specific question raised by yourself, Dr. Bob, it probably partially reflects, and again, I am not speaking on behalf of the government here, it probably reflects the complexity of the matters on the table of Caribbean governments at this time. In following the news here in Grenada, I think the government has been very deliberate in considering the issues and, in fact, been very strategic probably in its public responses, in its public utterances, because these are matters that, in my view, and I correctly pointed out, as a former diplomat and but one who continues to follow foreign policy extremely close, that sometimes it is better to say less than to say more, especially in public spaces. It's better for you to manage your communication and what you're saying because of the impact it can have in various quarters. However, having said that, I think one can probably argue that going forward, that there is need for more public engagement as the matters shift, as information becomes available to the government. They will, in fact, hopefully engage in such a dialogue. Remember, and as pointed out by previous guests and your own program, Dr. Bob, especially in the first segment, this is a moving target. The issue of immigration is moving, and it's moving very rapidly. And therefore, you may put out a statement today that by this morning and by evening, it is really void and does not carry much. So I think the government has been very cautious, and probably rightfully so. But I would agree with you that going forward, there will be the need for further engagement on the critical issues that confronts the country at this time.
Yes, go ahead, sir. Please.
Sorry, I'll give it to my colleague Gilchrist, and then I'll return. I'll return.
Yes. So Gilchrist, happy New
Yes,
Year.
yes. So good morning,
yes.
Dr. Bob. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are. Yes.
So good morning. It's good to be back on the program.
Yes.
So why I've been here?
Yes, I know.
I wish you well. And I wish Mr. Kondo well, and of course Dr. Fletcher and all of us in Grenada, Karakou and Peter Martinique. And I believe that just to go specifically to your question, from what I know is that notwithstanding the government have not been making press conferences and giving press releases and so on and the matter, a lot of technical work have been going on behind the scenes. And like Dr. Fletcher said, it's fluid, right? So a lot of technical work, and I do believe that as going forward, you will see more engagement because I think the dust is settling on the economic and political issues now. So I anticipate you would get more public disclosure going forward. But I must say, from my understanding, a lot of technical work has been going on behind the scenes. Now it is reaching to a point where it's time to speak. You shall see that soon going forward.
And I suppose I understand the risk of Grenada has a target on its back for some reason. Maybe it's because of Grenada's history with the revolution and because of who is the Secretary of State there. But I suppose perhaps damned if you do, damned if you don't with respect to speaking out, right, on these matters. But let us get to the substantive issue here. Gilchrist and Fletcher, what are your positions on this? Fletcher, I will begin with you, sir. What is your intrinsic view on this? Of course, there are those who are suggesting that this is an opportunity for Grenada to increase its population, and because Grenada has a low population, and some are couching this as a labor supply argument. My counter argument here, quite frankly, will be these are people who are being renditioned and repatriated to places where they have no cultural ties. We have seen the evidence of this, as I pointed out. They have no familial connections to the Caribbean. A lot of them, they may not, and they are being repatriated under duress. These folks are already traumatized as it is. So who is to say that they would be excited about being integrated into a country against their will? And on top of that, Grenada, and I'm speaking now of Grenada, I can't speak of the other countries, we have pressures with respect to housing and feeding our own people, right? There's significant housing pressures in Grenada. Again, we don't know who these people are going to be, right? We don't know what their backgrounds are. We don't know what sort of criminality issues might occur here. We have seen, for example, what has occurred with some of our own Grenadian nationals who were deported from the United States and what they have done to cause bedlam and mayhem and havoc on the criminal justice side of things. So I'm just using that sort of as the counter argument here. But let us get your thought processes on this, and I do want to bring back Pete. I will bring back Peter eventually on this question. But Dr. Fletcher, what is the argument here? What should the government be saying to the people as a justification for going ahead with this policy under duress, as I call it?
Yeah, so Dr. Bob, let me say the following, that any consideration by the government of following in the footsteps of the other OECS states that have signed up the MOU, and as you have correctly pointed out, the Grenada government has not to date signed any arrangement, any MOU or agreement with the United States on the issue of undocumented immigrants. I will put forward three among many things that should be given due consideration. Firstly, as we all know, it is the right of every country to set its own immigration policies. We cannot determine it, we cannot influence it significantly, but what we ought to do is to strategically locate ourselves to navigate and to negotiate through these policies and programs that the governments of external countries are going to be implementing that will impact on us. And therefore, as a Grenadian people, we ought to consider this matter as a very humane matter, as a human matter in which the humanistic element should be to take prominence. In other words, how should we as Grenadians react to a situation of persons needing a home, persons needing to be out of a detention center and find themselves in an environment that is comfortable enough for them to be able to assimilate into the society for which they have been repatriated. That's one fundamental pillar. The second pillar is that I think as a people and as a government, they should recognize the complexity of the times that we are living in. Certainly, your former two guests, Mr. Kando and Mr. Wickham, has outlined and has mentioned some of these complexities that we have faced. And the third point that I want to really stress here, that any agreement made by the government of Grenada, or to be made by the government of Grenada, must ensure that it is aligned with Grenada's national interest, the security of our people, the economic prosperity of our people, and the social well-being. That as a basis on which we should move on. And therefore, in humanizing the issue, we ought to step back from the criminal boogeyman slogan that has been articulated on such persons. In fact, my research has shown, Kelon, that between January to June 2025, 80% of the persons detained by ICE has no criminal records. No criminal records at all, 80% of such persons. Which means that persons detained and are waiting to be repatriated to a third country, we very well might be getting a mixed bag of persons, but there's an indication in there as to the kind of person and the profile of such persons that are there for repatriation. Therefore, it is very important that at this point in time, that the government position itself to influence the profile of the persons that Grenada is willing to accept, the number of persons that Grenada is willing to accept, and to set in stage a framework agreement with the United States for receiving such nationals. These can stem from financial inputs, to housing issues, to safety, social security, safety nets, and to personal and national security issues. So we have to, in my view, I want to humanize this issue and bring the human element into it for consideration. Now, having said that, I am very much aware, integrally involved, of the concerns of the Grenadian people. People has legitimate concerns. Who are these persons that will be accepted or likely to accept? Where they are coming from? Which countries they are coming from? What is their ability to assimilate into the Grenadian society? And what sort of framework will be used to ensure that whereas we as Grenadians open out our spicy hearts to the rest of the world and welcome nationals, that we do it in a way knowing that we are safe and secured, and that person coming in will not bring any undue financial pressure on the state and on the treasury to provide for their well-being. And in that regard, the government must pay particular attention to its negotiating team. And I know they're in fact doing so. The Prime Minister is very much on top of these issues, I suspect, from his utterances. And in putting the team together, it is really important that we have strategic considerations in place that will lead to turning this issue into an opportunity for us. Because this could be a two-edged sword, where if we do not leverage it and perceive it and set the framework for us to use it as an opportunity, it can become a significant downside and pose significant risk to the Grenadian people. And in that regard, again, the government must get involved in really setting out the actual profile, removing criminals from the list as far as they can negotiate, and so on, and to have that predetermined list been vetted by the government of Grenada on a case-by-case basis. I want to add this other thing, Dr. Bob, as I mentioned, the concerns of the Grenadian people. So people will be concerned about their personal safety and the safety of the country. People will be concerned about jobs and how their jobs are likely to be affected. People are going to be concerned about social services and the pressure that is bringing on them, and the social people's ability to really acclimatize and integrate into the Grenadian society. But we have the experience, not in that same way, but Grenada has been receiving persons from Venezuela, from Cuba, from Guyana over the years. And I'm showing you what to go back.
Except we have been deporting Haitians. I'll call out that hypocrisy shortly, but go ahead, please.
Right. And this is so there has been that, but we have been receiving, with some exceptions, like every country, there are exceptions. And the Haiti matter, Dr. Bob, I think is something that we should really address as a region, right? You mentioned earlier on the attitude and the narratives coming out from the Prime Minister of St. Kitts, right, which you have taken objection to, and I agree with that. But Grenadians' concerns must be taken on board. They must be identified clinically and assessed and dealt with surgical precision. We should do that, take it into consideration. My own position is this, is that we have a number of reasons why I would say, why I would suggest to the government that they take this matter in a very positive light, very positively, that we seek to leverage the opportunity, as I said before, to get to expand on our population. Many businesses cannot survive in this country, or we have a set of one-type businesses because we do not have the population size to support more than one of those businesses. You set up one and that's it. We can expand the population. In fact, studies have shown that Grenada has the possibility and has or needs a significant injection of persons, of people. We have seen it again in the Senate. The business representative in the Senate in particular, Mr. Rahman, has been calling for government to get involved in the importation of workers. And in that regard, my studies have shown, or my research has shown, that a high number of persons that are down to be deported are persons from the construction industry, the hospitality industry, agricultural sector. And these are some of the sectors in which there is a serious and severe shortage of skills set. And we can go through the entire economy, all right, the public sector, the private sector, and there are gaping holes for skill sets, for skills and employment. And I think Grenada should really view this as an opportunity, but put the safeguards in place. I want to underline that. Negotiate well and establish the relevant safeguards. And we can talk about that later on, what kind of safeguards that the government, in fact, should consider before moving on. But we are human people, and let us consider. Last thing, Kellon, before we move on.
Yes.
Mr. Wickham raised a very interesting example a while ago of the Rwanda agreement with the British government. This is one, Mr. Wickham, that I think that we should really look at in Grenada and see how that has worked. I know it has stopped by the current government. I think the current British government has stopped this scheme, but it was a scheme in which undocumented immigrants from the UK were sent to Rwanda in an organized way, in a structured way, in which the Rwanda government received financial compensation. And I would say in the case of Grenada, we have a CBI, we have a model that have been used where I think probably over 200 or 250,000 US dollars have been charged for persons seeking to reside in Grenada to become Grenadian citizens. We can probably use that as a measuring rod to see how we can, in fact, implement a financial ecosystem around the persons we are likely to be receiving. I know it's been a bit long, but I thought it was necessary to lay that foundation.
Context matters. You're an economist, Dr. Gilchrist. Let's talk about your position on this.
Well, yes, I think Dr. Fletcher has really articulated a lot of the economic benefits if we were to say yes. So those are well articulated, but I just want to point out that I know you spoke earlier on about the increase in the population. Yeah, that's a real issue because out of that comes a human capacity to develop. We can't just develop a technology and equipment. You need a human side to it. So I think the issue of the population momentum trending upwards is important because as I speak, our population is trending below 2 persons, all right, below 2, meaning that each woman, the fertility rate is trending below 2, and that is worrying. So we need to reverse that, right? But having said that, though, I want to get to the point of the MOU. My understanding is that the OECS countries, some of them have already signed an MOU, which is a broad framework. Grenada should sign that soon, but Grenada has the benefit of having come in later on to sign this. And as far as I understand, no criminals will be coming here, and there'll be a ring fencing of those who come. And this is an opportunity offered to Grenada, so we should maximize that opportunity and ensure that we are able to, as far as possible, get the U.S. government to give us a profile of the persons that are coming, so we can plan the integration into the economy. Because the economy needs it. Construction really need a boost in labor. Look how long it takes to get a project. Look how long. We are short on labor. And very soon, our GDP will start falling. And when that GDP falls, you know what happened to the entire fiscal space. So we can't afford that. So we really need, this is an urgent matter, and I will urge urgent attention to signing that MOU and then move to the next stage of having an operational arrangement. Because having the MOU signed is one thing, then you need to operationalize the MOU. That's where you would manage in the inflow. So we have to manage inflow, manage what we are getting, and we see how we integrate them. And so I think there's tremendous economic benefit. It's unfortunately it's coming like this, but it's time. We have to do something to reactivate and give the economy a boost and to expand the economy. Our GDP is too low. Look at Antigua. We have a much larger population in Antigua, and their GDP is twice ours. So we need to do more, and we need more people, all right, into the labor force. And I want to say that as the government considers saying yes, there are some parameters that should be put in place in terms of make sure that you accept persons within the population age or the working age population. People who are able and willing. I hear the point about cultural differences and so on, and I take Dr. Fletcher's point about the humanitarian aspect. And I believe it's an opportunity for Grenada to showcase our ability to accept people and our caring nature of our people. So it's an opportunity to, when they come, not if, when they come, is to help them to assimilate into the population and give them a Grenadian treatment. And I believe, but I just want to stress that the economic benefits are tremendous, and we should move on it quickly because there are other international economic issues that are happening that could affect us negatively. So I think this one is a plus. Yeah, and we should embrace it as soon as we can.
Well, you're saying embrace it, but I want to bring back Peter. Peter, you've heard what is happening here, what the positions of Gilchrist and Fletcher is. I want you to pick up on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we are all on the same page. In a sense, when you don't believe that you have much negotiating space, the thing is that you move in a way that suggests that you try to get the benefits that can be seen. And I think that all the panelists are pretty much on the same stage. I don't think any of us are excited about the prospect of receiving third-party migrants, but all of us are saying that we need to be essentially aware of who's coming and see how best we can make a win out of a situation in which there's not much of an alternative. And definitely the Rwanda model gives us an opportunity to look at something and see how it worked. And as I said earlier, as much as we found the whole thing distasteful, Rwanda seemed to have stood to make some serious money out of this project, which hasn't really gone anywhere. I've been keenly interested, though, in your mention of Haiti and your concerns about Haiti, concerns that I share. And over the years, a big challenge that we've had in the Caribbean is that we have spoken our words. in respect of our commitment to Haiti, our love for Haiti, our emotional attachment to Haiti, the fact that it was the first Black country to be able to declare independence from the French, and all of these, lovely things. But the reality is our actions have not matched it. And I think that our actions have not matched it for one very simple reason. Haiti is a massive country. It was then and it continues to be. 11 million people who are essentially facing levels of poverty that are unknown elsewhere in the region, who are highly migrant already and very mobile and on the move, and have an interest in moving in large numbers. Even if you get 1% of that population moving into Grenada, you have 1% of 11 million versus 100,000. You have a problem. And I think that this is the hard reality that we have looked at. CARICOM has taken Haiti on board. Haiti is part of CARICOM. They are a full member. Haiti has expressed an interest in joining the single market economy. We have, however, in many instances blocked, in the case of Barbados, reluctantly, we blocked the free movement of Haitians into Barbados under the Single Market and Economy Protocol, simply because we were concerned about our capacity, our absorptive capacity, and the challenge is real. So, Keelan, I understand your concerns, and I share a lot of them. I share that emotional attachment, but you're always told that when you're in a plane that's going down, you need to put your seatbelt on first before you can help others. And I think that this is a challenge a lot of us face in the Caribbean. As much as we would love to have brothers and sisters in Haiti, we feel that we are not in a financial position that's strong enough to do anything to assist them, and we may very well find ourselves reaching out, and both of us don't have our masks on, and as a result, we are unable to help others, and that's really what's responsible for this whole Haiti situation. So I don't expect that countries will be anxious to include Haiti on the list, simply because they appreciate that once they do that, you're looking at a very, very large number of migrants that are mobile, have positioned themselves, even without the assistance of special agreements, all over the region, and who then would be given essentially a right of occupation, a right of return, sorry, a right of establishing themselves in Caribbean countries, without that don't necessarily have the necessary capacity to take care of their own residents and nationals, far less anyone else. So it's a dose of realism that I think we need to inject in that conversation. But I totally get your emotional attachment and your concerns in that regard.
Well, to me, it's just hypocritical, because here we are entertaining the idea that this authoritarian in the United States is saying, sort of dictating our public policy. This is what it seems to me. I feel very strongly about this. And why were we not having those public policy conversations before his edict around saying that you need to accept these third country deportees, some of whom may not even want to be, they're being sent to these places against their will, Peter. So
yeah, no, and I'm not doubting all of those points, and I think those points are very strong. And the idea of a third party deportee coming without that person's consent and agreement is something that is real possible, and something that is disturbing, because you're essentially violating human rights by sending people around in that situation, especially when that person has expressed a request to immigrate to your country based on the fact that they are a refugee who wants to declare themselves in your country. You're saying to them, I won't consider your refugee status, but I'll send you to another place. You can ask them and see what it does. And it's interesting that it's happening along the same line, around the same time, that we are being told that economic citizenship programs are off the table. So if you want to give a passport eventually to a third-party migrant, you're welcome to do that. However, if you decide you want to give a passport to someone who is wanting to invest in your country, we have a problem with that. So it does seem as though the international community is speaking out of both sides of its mouth in that regard, but certainly the Trump administration. But, having said that, you're in a situation where you didn't make the rules, but you just have to live with them. And I think that is the unfortunate position that we're in now, where we are being forced to live by some rules and get by best as we can in the world.
Mr. Conda, former Deputy Prime Minister Conda, I wanted to pick up on what Peter just articulated here. This view that, you want us to accept citizens of third countries, people who are being sent to your places of abode against their will, yeah? But you have a problem with us entering into agreements with third country people by way of the CBI program, high net individuals, that is. Pick up on that idea. I thought that was a very good thought there. Just unmute the mic, sir. Just unmute your mic.
Yeah,
yes,
basically, that is what we're talking about, how we are getting on this problem. Because anything we do to advance our cause is going to be challenged by the metropolitan countries. And so we have to create our own circumstances to make sure that what we do is in our interest. In fact, I want to get in on the idea of humanizing this position. You know, it reminds me of an Anglican hymn that we sing. In Christ, there is no east or west. In him, no north or south, but one great fellowship of love throughout the whole wide world. So I agree that we have to humanize it, but we have to start from home with our own policies. Economic development is not a straight line. It is not a straight path. And policies must be adapted to suit each country's circumstances. In the Caribbean, we have something called the freedom of movement, which should have been adopted a long time ago. Only, I think, must be 4 countries have adopted it. Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, and I think is St. Vincent. The rest of us are slow to get onto that. That is a way of getting our population moving, increasing the skill levels in our situation. As we deal with this matter, we have to take serious consideration of the social and economic infrastructure, our health, our schools, and all those things. So I agree that we have to look at how we take these people, and it must be, everything must be done in our own interest. That is where the discussion must take place. That must be the focus. It must be strategic.
It must be strategic. And Mr. Conda, if you're advising CARICOM governments, I mean, at this point, heads of government on how to treat with these volleys that are coming from a very volatile person in Washington, you know, what advice would you give to Caribbean leaders? I mean, what type of leverage do we have to bring to the table in the first place?
Well, like I mean, say that again?
In negotiating with such a person, yes.
Yeah. I was saying that the whole thing is that we have to have a common view in CARICOM. We cannot do it as individual countries, Jamaica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua, Barbados. It cannot be done that way. We have to sit down as a CARICOM group to discuss this thing and respond to it in a comprehensive Caribbean fashion. We want to help, but we must not do it at our disadvantage. They have to understand what is our best interest of the Caribbean, and any policy, any agreement must be formulated about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else, Dr. Fletcher, that you wish to add? That, especially on the question that Peter raised here.
Right. So yes, certainly, I would want to add the following, and I agree with Mr. Kand as well, that the need for a comprehensive CARICOM response to this matter, or at least the OECS, notwithstanding the fact that we have seen individual countries go ahead and sign MOUs already, and Grenada is the one behind. But I would encourage the government of Grenada to very soon sign up the MOU in the interest of our nationals, and to pursue the final agreement, taking into consideration some of the issues that we already put on the table. But I also want to add this. And it shows the difficulties and the complexities in which we are operating in these parts. We had a thriving banana industry years ago. It was not classified in the same way as the CBI or the offshore banking sector was classified. We had a sugar sector, and what happened? The policies of those countries decimated our ability to produce and export bananas and to earn a decent income. Many of our farmers were in fact affected. Then we tried the offshore banking sector. That too went. We trying the citizenship by investment program, which, by the way, I must say, is not unique to the Caribbean. Citizenship by investment operates throughout the entire world. The United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Malta, a number of countries around the world have these programs. But we find ourselves challenged in the Caribbean to maintain economic live streams for our people. And therefore, we have to understand where we are in the global food chain, where we are as small developing states, what is our capacity and our ability to stand tall in the international community, to request and demand what we need. And frankly, we are at the stage now where we have to negotiate our way in the current context. We are binded to the hip of the United States in many, many ways. Our trade with the US, our tourism, right? For example, data shows that over 54% of our stayover visitors come from the United States. Our cruise tourism also is significant for us, right? We in terms of trade, the United States is our largest single trading partner at this point. These are not things that we can flip as a switch and change trading partners, change sources of tourism and so forth, and do not have serious negative consequences on the economy and the state that we find ourselves in, right? So we have to be able to understand where we are at this point in our history and our economy, understand the economic, political, and social consequences of what we are asked to do, and indeed find a negotiating position that provides for the safety, security of our people, economic livelihoods. I also want to say, it was mentioned a while ago about persons being sent to third countries without their acquiescence to it. And this is something that must be given serious consideration by the government. And I hope that one of the things that could form part of the financial architecture is to ensure that financing is available for when such persons arrive in Grenada and they wish to exercise to be returned to their home country, that there's financial support to get them back to their home country. I don't think we should negotiate into a position where we lose the ability to respond to this human right of such persons who say, well, look, I wish to be repatriated to my home country.
Well,
we should be able to do that.
But Dr. Fletcher, no, a lot of these folks left their home countries, some of them fleeing persecution. That's why they left in the first place. So why would they want to be repatriated back to places that, first of all, do not want to accept them, and secondly, that many of them do not want to go back through, but thirdly, many of them have pending litigation before U.S. immigration courts?
Right, and therefore, this is my point. Remember, the underscoring of my point is saying if they wish to return, it is a choice that needs to be made. One, if they wish to return, they should. Secondly, I do not think that the government of Grenada, the Grenadian people, will agree for us to repatriate anyone into a country in which their life will be at stake. I don't think that we will embark on such. However, in keeping with the goodwill of the Grenadian people, I am saying that if such persons arrive in Grenada and wishes to exercise the right to return to their home country, and mind you, they might very well be, because let us make no mistake about it. Who are we talking about with some degree of uncertainty about who we are likely to receive? we are likely to receive a mix of persons. As I indicated earlier on, from ICE data, 80% of persons who are detained between January to June of 2025, there's no criminal record, absolutely none, right? So you may very well find that there are persons who will want to exercise the right to return to their home country, the country of their family, their parents, their grandparents, and they should not be denied that option, right? So it is, again, up to the government when it gets to that point of the negotiations to ensure that their selection is correct as far as possible in keeping with the national interest, and that we, in fact, proceed to provide support for persons returning. Not everyone that is detained is a criminal. We ourselves in this country, we know for a fact the immigration status model that our people have used. Let us not pretend we are not aware of it. We are aware that we have a visa and we go and some people overstay, but become highly skilled persons. If such persons happen to get caught up into an arrest situation that's going on today, how will we want them to be actually treated? Right? How will we want them to be considered? If they are detained and said, okay, we are going to send you to a third country, not to Grenada, right? And Grenada has no say in that part of it. How will we want that receiving country, that third country, to treat our people? And I want to warn very much so that this is a matter, in my humble opinion, as a public policy person, that we should not treat along party political lines. Let us not turn it into a party political football and try to score political points, right? About who is trying to do this, that, or the other on the matter. And it's for that reason, Dr. Bob, I'm going to go back to where you started. There might very well be a need for the government not only to say more to the Grenadian people, but to go to the parliament and get the consensus of parliamentarians on the way forward. In fact, I would suggest that one of the legal elements that should be considered for such persons is to provide them with some sort of citizenship category. Give them a category under our citizenship law, under our immigration law, so that they are treated and dealt with in a particular way. And for that to happen, we need parliamentarians to gather and to give their input and put their fingerprints on such a significant national issue. I do not think Grenada has ever been faced with such a significant international challenge, as well as a domestic challenge that is so complex for our people. But we need to rise to the occasion as a people and take part in the discussions, be part of it, and encourage our government to do the right thing. How many of us would have liked to be in a situation where our legal status in the US is being processed? We have no say about it. We have been detained. The lawyers, the immigration lawyers, are unable to reach to us, to get to us, and the authorities' policy takes its own course. How would we want our people to be treated? How do we want them to be treated? And it is for that reason. This is not about necessarily bowing to great power politics, although this is a realm that we are in. It is not necessarily about that only. It is about how Grenada and the Caribbean, as small independent states, maintain sovereignty while at the same time navigating this complex world, while ensuring that our people have food on the table, that we have jobs, we have personal and national security. How do we ensure that? And this is where the discussion has to be. Let's look at the Rwanda model. Let's look at other models. Let us shape a national framework that allows us to deal with this matter, because this matter is not going to go away. Under the Obama administration, Obama was also arresting, detaining, and repatriating people at an average of 794 per day. But there was not much noise about it. It was done quietly. I'm sure if you ask many Grenadians or Caribbean personnel about it, they probably hardly heard about it. but it happened. Immigration policies are evolving. In the UK, in Europe,
except Obama was not sending people to third country. He was not sending people to third country states.
Absolutely, I agree with that. But nonetheless, the bottom line of the point is that countries are exercising the immigration policies in whether they see fit. And I agree, Obama was not sending to third-party states, and that brings a different dimension. And this is what makes it complex, Dr. Bob. It is more complex than ever because of the expanding policies on immigration. Because of that. And as pointed out by eloquently by Mr. Wickham, that the UK has a policy in which they are repatriating people to Rwanda. So this is something that is evolving. And as Caribbean states, we have to step back a bit and push forward with a strategic position on how, because this thing goes to the heart of our survival as a people. Let's not make short statements and sloganize about what seems to be a serious economic threat to our small societies.
Let's get to some viewer comments here. Peter had to jump off because he's on another program in Barbados. Of course, as some of you probably heard overnight, Prime Minister Mia Mottley announced an election for the 11th of February 2026 in neighboring Barbados. And as we know, Peter functions in that political science space, so I know that he's very busy today, given against the backdrop of this election announcement. But let's get to some viewer comments. Vanessa will say, he says, I think we're in this predicament because we think alone instead of as a body. CARICOM should be speaking with one voice and not as an individual country. And I see Mr. Conda nodding in agreement there. So Conda, that's something you articulated. You agree there with that view. Let's get to another comment here. We want to get to some questions. So if you have any questions for the panel, that would be good. Let's get to some other. Someone is saying here that the White House occupant does not care about the well-being of Caribbean countries. Recall his terminology, S-whole countries. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, Mr. Condon, I want you to really speak to this question here. You've heard how this gentleman, and I'm using the word gentleman generously here, speaks about so-called third world countries. I call us developing countries. We are countries that are victims of colonization, really. About how he speaks of us, really. So don't you think this policy is sort of, again, a reflection of that ethos that he has in his mind, in the way that he thinks about countries in the Caribbean and Africa? You can just unmute the mic again, sir.
Yes, so
go ahead. Yes, go ahead. No problem.
I don't credit the President of the United States with much sense, right? In fact, the American people, I don't understand. I remember the court hearing when he had some 35 convictions. And the reason they said that why they can't send him to jail is because he'll be running for president. That can't happen in no other country in the world. A conviction is a conviction. And now he's saying that you mustn't change the government because if you change the government, he will be impeached. That isn't anybody who should be in charge of any country. So I don't give much credit to him. But what I would like to go back is where I began.
Yes,
that
sir.
The United States is demonstrating both the willingness and the capability to act against the region in ways that could conflict several economic damages on us. That is clear. And our role, that was repeated by Dr. Fletcher, this is a test where the Caribbean nations can exercise their sovereignty without jeopardizing economic survival. I mean, that is the basic text for us. And I think Dr. Fletcher had it right. we were talking about the CBI and programs like that. But he went back to agriculture, our banana industry and the sugar industry. And you know how that was resolved, how that was addressed? By the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries coming together to sign an agreement. That is how we are going to address our issues. By coming together regional, I mean, we have the hemisphere, we have the OAS. Are we using them to assist us? CARICOM is 15 countries. The OAS is, I think, 33. We are nearly half of the OAS. What are we doing there? What about the Commonwealth? Are we getting assistance and advice and so on? Get our Commonwealth, we want to call it a bit and get the Commonwealth to assist us in these negotiations. What is good for our interest, our region? That is where we have to go.
Yeah, yeah.
And like all the panelists were saying, it has to do with our own interest, and we have to make sure as a Caribbean people we do that. This is not easy. This is the most serious crisis that we have faced. I mean, you could go back to history, and you know, it's like they say, those who don't learn from the history are doomed to repeat it. And history is clear. What we have to do in these circumstances, we have come up from slavery and colonialism and imperialism, and come into independent sovereign countries. We just have to continue to fight that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Must lie down and die.
Yes, sir. I hear your passion here. Let's get to, I believe, let's see here. I believe there was another question here.
Dr. Bob, while you search for the other question, if I may just come in here. On the issue of bananas, you know, and we must know our history. And I want to catapult from where Mr. Sam Kando has left out. On the banana issue, we begged the British to keep Caribbean bananas on the market. We pleaded, we sent delegations to Europe. Did that make a difference? Were we able to really influence the policy that led to the removal of Caribbean bananas from the European market? And who instigated it? Let us not be blinded by the realities of great power politics. The removal of Caribbean bananas from the European market was articulated and pushed by an American company. Chiquita.
Yeah.
We lost the market completely. However, what happened, because we acted as a group within the ACP, of which I was proudly one of Grenada's ambassadors. I was not there at that time. I came in at the tail end of these negotiations, where we had the banana accompanying measures. We were able to negotiate with the Europeans and get some financial compensation to help restructure the economies and the sector. We must understand, and persons who are totally negative to entertaining the thought, let us put our energy in advising on the best strategic positioning we can take to get the best results. We couldn't stop bananas. We couldn't. On this issue, we couldn't stop the offshore banking sector from being decimated again from us. Many things. We have small economies, small population, small economic grounds on which to act. But you know what we have? In addition to our people, we have the ability to increase production and productivity. And as Dr. Gilchrist set out in his initial statement, we need to improve GDP. Our gross domestic product needs to be increased. If we do not do it, our incomes will fall, NIS will fall, pensions will fall, and what sort of economy and country are we going to have? So with much passion in my voice this morning, with much passion, and at the same time with much compassion for those who are sitting in places to be repatriated, I call on our policymakers. I call on our government to act and act quickly, decisively, but taking into account all the factors and act intelligently. So far, we have seen it. We have seen the government navigating very treacherous space and so far surviving. Let us not wait much longer. I want to encourage swift action on this. And such action ought to include some consultation with the business sector, some consultation with the people. Call a national consultation, call our people, put out the issues.
But should not have that already happened? That should have already happened, no?
Well, Dr. Bob, it has not happened, and this is a new recommendation that going forward, we need to move with much haste. Regrettably, it has not happened. And again, I do not know why. I think the government, you know, Dr. Bob, having a government in office that has been going around the country up to end of 2025, having town hall meetings, exposing themselves to be interviewed. I know there is much talk made about the cabinet press conferences, and that is important, and that has its place. But you have a government in Grenada that has gone through almost every parish up to the end of 2025, exposing its policy, taking people's concern, criticism, and so forth. I do not want to input any ill will by the government in its approach to this current policy. I think it's been well thought out, as Dr. Gilchrist has said. Technical work is taking place behind the scenes, and sometimes diplomacy is best practice in the calm of the rooms and not in the public spaces.
We have another question. I want Dr. Gilchrist to address this one. What is a reasonable or average population size in Grenada that needs to complement or stimulate economic growth and sustain business growth? Dr. Gilchrist. I suppose the question is, what is a reasonable population expectation? I mean, Grenada has a population of 110,000 people. And even in the context of that population, we still have pressures for housing. We still have pressures around healthcare delivery. I mean, you look at healthcare in Grenada, and yet, but go ahead, please.
Yes. Thanks for the question. So remember I said the fertility rate is about 2 and trending downwards. Yeah, so we are at 110,000. Now, most researchers and those who engage in population planning and so, all right, the figure that has been floating around is about we need about 10 to 20,000 people more. But more importantly, we need people within the working age group, because there's a high dependency ratio in Grenada. Our population, once that used to be young, is now aging. And this is why NS has challenges now meeting pensions and so on. Because you have a population that is now aging. The baby boomers era have passed. So most researchers and those who are engaged in population planning would tell you that we need at least 20,000 people additional in Grenada into the workforce. But I must say a lot of the challenges that we are having now has to do with the economics. Yeah, the economics of it. We are one of the lowest paid in the Caribbean. So income levels are very low, notwithstanding the effort government made to increase the minimum wage. So the income generation capacity has to improve, and we need to expand the private sector a bit more and move away from heavy dependency on the government employment approach, because government has constraints in terms of the fiscal space. So as we expand the private sector, bring more people in, we expand the private sector, I think that we do well for promoting and boosting our economic growth and our development. So we're looking at least 20,000 people more. I'm not talking about the CBI where we approve about 20,000 passports.
There is no residency requirement for that. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
does that even
Mr.
count?
Chairman.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
Mr. Conda, I am honored to be called chairman as a sort of a speaker of the house, right? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just want to share an experience I had with Dr. Fletcher and Dr. Gilchrist.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Gilchrist might be able to expand on this here. But there was an experience I had when I was in England. I went to study in England, and I went to the University of Sussex. No, I went to the University of Swansea in Wales to do an interview. to be admitted. I wanted to do economic development. And they had a panelist of 3 interviewing me. And they asked me, the first question was, what's the population of your country? I said, it's about 50,000 people, 35 on St. Kitts, 15 on Nevis, about 50,000. They said, what's the size of your country? I said, we are about 100 square miles, 68 on St. Kitts and 32 in Nevis and so. And they said, look, I think you better go back home, you know. There's no development model to suit a country like that. The development model we do here is the Indian model, the Russian model, the Chinese model. And so there's really nothing that we could do for you here. So just go back home. But here is the country with a standard of living, a health care, with 100% immunization, education, 95% education levels, literacy rate. And he telling me, don't come here because the model they're doing. And that is what we have to do. We have to understand that we have to create our own models, our own circumstances, our own peculiar circumstances. And don't worry about what the rest of the world is saying. In CARICOM, that is what the Federation was supposed to be about. It's about how, as a Caribbean nation, as a Caribbean people, we could promote and enhance our development and our standard of living of our people. And we could boast of a standard of living that is equal to many around the world. And so, you know, I want us to be always aware of that. That we are hardworking poor people, and when we negotiate these things, who we're negotiating with, it must be in our own interest. Whether it is LOMI in terms of our cotton agreement, in terms of the banana and sugar, or the CBI, or whatever we do, they're going to challenge us. But we have the capacity. We have shown that. We have demonstrated that. That we have a standard of living that is the envy of the world.
Tessa, yes, Dr. Gilchrist, you wanted to add?
No, I'm saying I agree with him. And just to make a point, Dr. Fletcher made about the banana situation. Now, remember the WTO, World Trade Organization, started officially in 1995. And of course, under the principles of non-discrimination. And once you apply that principle, countries' trading system had to be compliant. And European Union was saying, they told the European Union that their practices was not in compliance with the principles of the WTO. We were the casualties for that, so they had to adjust, and they couldn't accommodate us. Of course, they provided some compensation. So I'm saying the more you integrate into the world system, right, you become more vulnerable. And this is why we have to start looking inward, find our own pathway to development, maximizing resources we have, and produce. We have to get our people to produce. We have to educate our people. Otherwise, we are always going to find ourselves in this situation. Now, I quickly want to say that, of course, Dr. Bob, CARICOM has not moved as fast as it could. Yeah, but we could lament on that. We have to do what we have to do to manage our economy and to provide a basis for which we could develop, and our people could raise their level of income, raise their standard of living. We have to go forward because CARICOM is moving slow. I was very happy to hear the OECD heads met to decide on a common position. I hear people say we have to fight. But to fight, you must have something to fight with. You must have you must be able to fight. You have to have something to fight with. So we have to build and develop the basis and the platform from which we could fight. In other words, resilience. In this, all of this talk about resilience, you know, building resilience among our people, so we could absorb these whirlwinds that are coming after this situation. Something else will come up. We got through COVID, and we will get through this also. But we have to unite our people together, be smart about it, and I think we could get past this. We could get past this.
You're saying that this too shall pass. You're an eternal optimist. I have to say, though, that the last year being here in the United States felt like 4 years for me personally. But let's get to a question from Tessa Barry. She's saying, are these people willing to be deported to the region? If not, how do we prepare for people who do not want to be here? What are the implications of receiving those forced based on their circumstances? Dr. Fletcher, I think we sort of tangentially touched on that, but I want you to pick up on that question from Tessa.
Sure, Dr. Bob, it's a very important question, and it's one of the downside risks that has to be taken on board. And I'll also use the opportunity to talk of some of the risks that we are likely to be faced, although I mentioned some of them already. I'll want to repeat because I think there are some listeners out there that are concerned about the downside risk. In fact, I received a WhatsApp message from a colleague who raised this very issue. So there is a very real possibility that we can receive persons who do not wish to be here and wish to be in their home country. And that's why in the very beginning, I outlined as part of the financial architecture that we should seek to have some budget from the sending country to provide for repatriation of persons who wish to do so. We must not hold people against their will. And if someone arrives here with no criminal record, with no agreement for them to continue to serve the prison time within the Grenada prison system, there must be an agreement. And I underline the word must be an agreement that financial considerations are put into that agreement to allow such persons to be repatriated. So this is a risk that we face, Dr. Tessa, that persons can arrive here with no agreement in place for them to proceed to their home country, and we are stuck with them. What is likely to be the fallout from that? You can get antisocial behavior. People can become very irate and take actions that is not in the best interest of Grenadians and the society as a whole. So we have to bear that in mind. Along with that issue is that we may very well find ourselves in a position where we may sign an agreement and it's not being kept up to in a timely manner, in a way that allows for financial compensation and for finance to be available. That is a risk. When that happens, we have to dig into the National Treasury to ensure that persons are fed, housed, and so forth. However, on that very risk, there's another factor in place. We might very well get people, and we need to understand that some of these persons will become looking for work, looking for jobs. These persons are not expected, and based on the profile that Dr. Gilchrist indicated earlier on, such persons are not coming to sit on the house wherever, and waiting for social security benefits, for something to be handed to them every month. That might be in the first case or the first month or so, but we are looking, and we should encourage government to get active workforce that will be looking for work, that can be absorbed into the workforce and get working, earning monies, paying taxes, and contributing to the expansion of our national revenue. There's real possibility. In fact, a study that was done, I think, by Dr. Pierre, or shared by Dr. Pierre, indicated the impact of immigration, of an immigrant workforce on some European countries. It was done, I think, for 10 years and for 20-year period. No, 4 and 10-year period. We showed that there was very positive impact on national income, on the national treasury. So for every risk, we have to look to see how we can mitigate those risks. The other risk that we have is the issue of assimilation. Will such persons be willing to assimilate easily or within time within the Grenadian society? It means that we have to have persons, counselors in place, and persons that will be responsible for providing counseling and guidance, including language differences. So for example, in the persons in the illegal immigration stats of 14 million, approximately 14 million in the US, Mexico, in fact, as a country in the Latin American Caribbean region, holds about 7 million. Most of these countries, Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, hold significant amount of persons. But also is India, 725,000. Europe and Canada has numbers about approximating that of the Caribbean, which I think in 2022, 2023, is 275,000 persons. And that comes from the Pew research organization. So there is a mixed bag of persons that will come and that will be assimilated and will want to be, and others will not. So we have to take that in consideration. The other downside is the pressure on services. Now, let me state this here. I am one of those persons who believe in what I call population-pushed development. That as the population increases, good public policies dictates that we provide expanding services for the expanding population. And we are seeing it in our roads network. We are seeing it in our health services already. There is expanding services in our education to take care of an expanding workforce. So it is highly possible that this can happen, and that we must in fact put in place the mechanisms to make it happen. And what this is coming down to a large degree is the planning capacity of the country, of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. How do we plan to ensure that this project ends up to be a success for Grenada and not a downside? And please permit me to say the following. Grenada has recognized waves of immigration before. In a much more organized and structured way, yes, I will agree. So I'm putting that up front, that we have done this. We have received people before. We have received Syrians and Indians who got into the retail and manufacturing sector. I don't think they all came in with a work permit and so on. They might have been classified as undocumented and illegal. But look at the contribution to the society today. Then we had Guyanese in the 1980s and 1990s coming in. And where were the impact felt? In the education system. They came in as teachers and so on. They had skill sets, some of them unskilled as well, but they contributed to growth and development. Then we had Cuba. The Cubans came in the late 70s, 80s during the revolution, and we're having a second wave. That second wave, they are going into hospitality, construction, agricultural sector. And they have been absorbed into the Grenadian society. We have Venezuelans, same way. When the hurricane erupted in Montserrat, we also received, sorry, not the hurricane, the earthquake. Sorry, it was a volcanic eruption. When the volcano erupted
the
in
volcano,
Montserrat,
yeah.
Yeah, when we had the persons coming in. And Grenada proved, and we at that time, there was no vetting of who was coming in. Persons came in, they assimilated, and they become productive members of the Grenadian society. So there are downsides, but we must mitigate those downsides by ensuring that we plan properly. And this request is not managed in a haphazard, illogical, and inconsequential manner. But I trust that the persons who are driving this process will in fact take all those things into consideration and ensure that we have a happy, productive process in this regard.
Dr. Fletcher, and what none of you have mentioned, including with respect, Mr. Kondo, is our capacity constraints. Again, as I articulated before, where are we going to house these people? Who is going to be feeding them? Our hospital systems, our schools, right? Our school infrastructure, all of the, look, here is my positioning on this matter without injecting my own bias here. The People's Republic of China, since Grenada reestablished relations with them, and even before China and Taiwan, I was a victim, sadly, of that switch from Taiwan to China, as I lost my scholarship. But that's that aside. The People's Republic of China, they have given to Grenada several housing projects, right? They have given to Grenada human resource capacity with respect to the number of scholarships. They have given to Grenada support in agricultural services. On the other hand, what have we received from the United States since this regime in Washington? They have cut the little bit of USAID funding that they have given to the region, and they have adopted an America First posture with respect to the Caribbean. In other words, we are not going to be doing any of that soft power stuff now. It's just we're just going to carry a big stick. The reason why I'm using this anecdote here is to say, you know, should we not be negotiating with these folks in Washington for bigger demands that would address these structural issues that we have in our societies? The United States they played no part, except, of course, at the end of it, the construction of the Maurice Bishop International Airport. They came in at the end after the invasion. But the substantive work was done by Global South partners, including Libya, including Cuba, for the construction of the international airport. With respect to the current healthcare challenges that we have, it is the Cubans who are assisting us. Very limited, and the healthcare system continues to be challenged, even with that assistance. Yes? If we look, for example, at all of the other assistance that we're receiving from other Global South countries, whether it's Morocco for scholarships, whether it's Japan for fishing and all of those things. In other words, what type of negotiating posture are we adopting with a United States who is saying that, well, we've cut all the USAID funding and all of the soft power initiatives, then what gives?
But Dr.
What gives? Yes, Dr. Gilchrist, yes, please.
Yes, I take the point about capacity constraints. That's a valid point. But I want to assume that there must be a financial assistance package accompanying this agreement. There must be. I mean, it cannot be that you have the transferees competing for social services and other housing and all of that. So I'm assuming that there will be, and this is an area for leverage for other aspects to widen the package to feed into addressing some of our structural and development needs. So that's a good point, and because we don't have the capacity to look after these people when they arrive and to settle them in. So I want to assume, and I encourage those who are negotiating the MOU to have included a good financial resettlement package for these people. And that is important so that we do not put strain on the fiscal purse to agenda. We already have our problems in the roads and housing and all of that. So you have a point there, and I'm sure the policymakers are listening, and I want to trust that the negotiators will keep that in mind. They want the people out, yes, but we need help. We need financial assistance to help them.
Mr. Conda, please pick up on that.
Yeah, I was saying that I think it's implied in what Dr. Fletcher is saying, that we can get those resources because the population push development, which Dr. Fletcher is talking about, comes with resources that you are saying that we must have. So that, to me, is something that is agreed, accepted. We can't have this population because there's going to be, like I said, a strain on our healthcare or education or all these things. So population push development comes with resources, but they are doing everything to limit the resources from the CBI, from whatever we're doing. So that is where the conversation has to take place. And just to mention something else that Dr. Fletcher said, is the mitigation risk.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that we're talking about, the mitigation risk, Dr. Fletcher, is our functional cooperation. That is what has helped us in the region, especially in the OAS. We have functional cooperation that could stand toe-to-toe with any part of the world. And I think that we have to continue to build that, because that is what is going to help us mitigating the risk that will come with all these challenges that we're facing from North America.
But Mr. Conda, I just want to pick up on this. You know, St. Kitts and Nevis, it's smaller than Grenada, or the area might be the same. Where is St. Kitts and Nevis?
No, smaller.
Smaller, right? Where is St. Kitts and Nevis?
Yeah.
Should it not be instructive for your government to invite those folks from Washington? Not that they would care, because they're myopic in their thinking about the Caribbean, to invite them to the Caribbean to see how small these islands are. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. Where in St. Kitts are you going to accommodate these folks?
And that is why I'm saying that, and why I gave the thing about the development of countries. You know, they don't have no model to suit us. But and that is why we have to do it as a region, and that is why this negotiations must be done. I think Dr. Fletcher was making a point, quietly, behind the scenes, quiet diplomacy, not public confrontation. We can't look any public fight with anybody. David and the Goliath is just a Bible story. And so we not going to be able to slay Goliath. It is quiet diplomacy, strategic diplomacy. And we say, we have the infrastructure here, or functional cooperation in the OECS and in CARICOM. That has stood the test of time.
Yeah, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, yes, Dr. Pessure, quickly.
I
Yes.
just want to chime in on the one of the strategic negotiating actions as recommended by Mr. Kendall. You know, it might be very good. We sit here and we probably assuming that the US knows down to the nitty-gritty of our countries and our services and our societies.
I mean, I suspect they do. I suspect they do.
But what I want to, so sometimes it is useful to have country tours. You see how we're bringing travel writers to come visit our country and therefore they write nice things? Probably part of the strategy could ask some US foreign policy persons to come down to our facilities so that we can make the case, understand our needs. So that will help us make the case. Because I know within the European context, within the European ACP context, a lot of that happens. When missions are sent. You know, in Grenada, we sit down here and we say, oh, a mission is coming from this country. A mission is coming from the IMF World Bank. Why are they coming? Not only to talk, but to see and observe and have that impact upon them. I saw the impact that had Dr. Bob when following Hurricane Beryl. The Rural Development Unit at the time had a meeting with a team from the International Fund for Agricultural Development. And just being here, yes, it's a different time, disaster time, but them seeing what has happened post-Beryl, they having an idea and knowing what Grenada was like prior to Beryl, it had a significant impact on the shaping of the policies and the extension that was requested at that time. So I want to write on that as part of the strategic actions. It may or may not be accepted. It may or may not have any impact, but let us not throw it out for consideration.
We have one final question here, and then I really have to get to a break and then close the program. Someone is asking, we recently had Hurricane Beryl where housing is still a major issue in CARICOM and PT Martinique. Why should we be taking deportees from another country now, and we have Grenadians who are still living in shelters on the sister isles and maybe in the northern part of Grenada as well? Gentlemen?
Yes, and that's the point I'm making. I anticipate that these deportees will be accompanied by a resettlement package, right? I anticipate that in the short run. Thereafter, they must have the capacity to earn their livelihood. They cannot come and depend on the state, right? So I'm saying that there must be a financial package for settlement, housing, and all the immediate needs to get them into Grenada and to reposition them so that they are able now to enter the workforce and earn a living just like everybody else. We have to pay attention. Otherwise, we have problems. It's unfair, right? Because as you said, we still have needs here. We have people here who still have housing needs, all right? And we can't take resources and divert to these people. So we have to ensure those who are negotiating the package have to ensure that it is accompanied by direct financial support, not indirect, direct, to take care of these immediate needs of the deportee. This is why there is an urgency, to sign the MOU, which is a broad overarching framework, and move swiftly into negotiating details. And I also want to add that we have to manage the flow of these deportees. We have to manage the flow. We can't take in all one time. You have to manage the flow and assimilate them, smoothly into the society.
Dr. Gilchrist, if you could really speak to the foreign minister. I'm not sure what conversations you've had with him, but he's been very silent. I noticed I don't know if he's picking breadfruit or mangoes, but perhaps I'll tell him that, we would want to, the way that both you and Dr. Fletcher, sorry, I have to call the government out on this. The way you and Dr. Fletcher articulated this, I believe elected officials in Grenada should be the ones front and center, really leveling with their people, notwithstanding the challenges that they face in trying to negotiate with, I I want to choose my words carefully, trying to negotiate with a very erratic and volatile person in the United States at this time. But gentlemen, what we want to do, we do want to take a break because we have to come up for air, and then we get to you all for some closing comments. Mr. Conda, I hope I'm not, and gentlemen, I hope I'm not keeping you back from your lunch today. Mr. Conda, what's on the menu today, Nevis, in St. Kitts Nevis, for your lunch? What's usually the go-to Sunday lunch? Just unmute the mic. Unmute your mic, Sam. Mr. Conda, unmute your mic. Yeah.
But basically, Sundays really rice and peas really for most people, and you have your salad. So some people use some macaroni pies and so on. People eat really. I know. Well, on Sunday,
yes,
Sunday
is the best
was the one day of the week when
yeah.
you were really and some people, the chicken and the meat and so on. And those people who are vegetarians will find out a way of doing it.
As we say in Grenada, ital, yes. All right, folks, yes. We're going to take a quick break and come back to close this week's program. Please stand by. Hi, everyone. The Bub Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to explore the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this. So I'm not too sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bub Report. We go there.
And folks, before we close the program today, I do want to articulate the editorial that we prepared for this week. Of course, it is, in fact, a guest editorial, and that guest editorial comes from that's Sheldon Pemberton. And here goes. The United States suspension of immigrant visa processing for 75 countries has thrown into sharp relief the unfinished business of Caribbean integration and the limits of CARICOM's leadership. The decision is a stark reminder that decades after independence, much of the region's mobility, opportunity, and even family life remain hostage to policy shifts in Washington. For ordinary Caribbean people, visas are more than stamps in a passport. They are escape valves from stagnant economies, underfunded public services, and fragile labor markets. Yet, instead of building a development model that reduces dependency on external powers, regional elites often treated migration and remittances as substitutes for hard structural reform. The region exported its talent while importing foreign capital, tourism receipts, and geopolitical favor, leaving societies exposed when global winds inevitably changed. CARICOM, in theory, was designed to transform small vulnerable states into a collective actor able to negotiate from a position of relative strength. In practice, however, leaders guarded national sovereignty while quietly competing for the same investors, the same aid packages, and the same diplomatic access. That inward focus and the pursuit of individual political and economic gain hollowed out the idea of a genuinely shared Caribbean future. Now, when crises came, whether in finance, health, climate, or now migration, the region spoke with many hesitant voices instead of one clear, principled position on these matters. This moment feels like an indictment because it forces a painful question. If the region had truly invested in integration, diversified its economies, and built real intra-Caribbean opportunity, how many people would still feel that their dignity and their destiny is dependent on a visa officer's discretion in Bridgetown? Folks, this is some food for thought indeed. And what we want to do now is to get to some closing comments from our esteemed panel here. So, Dr. Gilchrist, I want to begin with you, sir. Actually, no, I want to begin with Mr. Conda for closing comments. Mr. Conda, over to you, sir, for some closing comments. And thank you again for agreeing to sit with us. Unfortunately, I was unable to mobilize your former foreign minister colleague, Mr. Peter David, for this morning's conversation. But I would certainly convey your regards whenever he decides to answer our calls.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a very good relationship with Peter David. We served as foreign ministers together at one time, and then when I served as UN ambassador, he was, I think, the Minister of Foreign Affairs again in Grenada. So we have developed a very close relationship. Very fond of him, and I wish him well.
Yes. So over to you, sir, for some closing comments.
Yeah, I want to close by restating your statement about government ministers. And I think it's Dr. Fletcher who spoke of it early when he said, this is not a government matter. It is a national matter. It is not a political issue between opposition and government. It is a national meeting with all our citizens, town hall meetings. The engagement must be wide and broad. And I just want to emphasize that.
Except, Mr. Conda, there is zero engagement. That is my frustration. That the politicians, I'm sorry, politicians are elected. They're elected to serve the people, whether they're government or opposition. And yes, it's a national matter. Civil society has to be involved.
Absolutely,
but none of that is happening. And that's my frustration. But please, go ahead, sir.
Okay, comments. I want to close with, as I started, with our article that I did from Mr. Marlon Butte, who said the Caribbean must stand firm on its fight to independent foreign policy, but it must do so intelligently. Defending sovereignty does not mean engaging in symbolic battles that risk economic collapse. It means ensuring that the region remains politically resilient and economically stable in the face of external pressure. Quiet diplomacy is not weakness. It is a strategy for long-term survival. Caribbean leaders must ask themselves, do we want to make bold statements or do we want to secure our economies and protect our people? And I'm going to end by saying that there's nothing new under the sun. History is replete with our information that we could use. And if we go back to 200 years ago, 1823, with the Monroe Doctrine, that is when the power and influence of the United States started. And we come to 2026, 200 years later, we see that there are numerous lessons that we can learn from that. And I want to say that for any people, history is the foundation on which a nation is built. History is what connects our present generation to our ancestors. It is how we discover who we are and from whence we came. Any attempt to erase our history is an attempt to reduce us to less than a people, to degrade our identity, to return us to nameless slaves. Those who forget their history are doomed to relive it. We must go forward. We have the capacity and the ability to continue to serve our people in this region well.
Former Deputy Prime Minister Kondo, thank you so much for appearing on the Bob Report this week. I do promise I do have a colleague a professor, you may know, I know St. Kitts Nevis is small, but he's from Nevis. Yeah. Professor Osman Farrell, he's my colleague at Montgomery College. I don't know if you know this gentleman, but he's from Nevis.
Yeah. St. Kitts is a small place. Everybody knows everybody.
Right, yeah. So he's I don't know if he's listening now, but but he's an esteemed colleague, professor colleague of mine. We work at the same academic institution.
Yeah.
We are in the same department actually. Yeah. So I
think he's from Sandy Point actually.
Yes.
The town of Sandy Point. Let me just add that. The town of Sandy Point.
The town of Sandy Point. All right. So thank you so much. I do hope to
My
visit,
pleasure. I feel honored to be invited, and anytime. I always learn so much.
Yes,
from,
absolutely.
You know, yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes.
Okay.
So let's go over to Dr. Gilchrist and Fletcher for some closing comments. Dr. Gilchrist, you've articulated a lot here this morning. Have you given advice to the government on this question?
I've had conversation with the government on like everybody else, but I've had conversation with them. Yeah. So I this is why I speak in that manner, because I've had conversation, and I'm supposed they are speaking with other people like myself. But I want to say quickly, Dr. Bob, we live in a society where people have itching ears.
They have what? Itching ears?
Itching ears. And here is the challenge. People have itching ears. In other words, but there's a scripture that speaks to be swift to hear and slow to speak. But having said that, I believe we have spoken enough, and the time is not right. The time is right for policymakers to say something and to declare the position of the government of Grenada. So I'm sure, even coming out of this program, well informative, well articulated, and good advice, even from the comments from some of the listeners, and I believe there is enough now for a decision to be made. Yeah, there's not much more I can say, but I think there's enough now for a decision to be made, and I believe Grenada is well positioned to make a good decision, having coming at the tail end, because other countries already declared a position, and we benefit from those positions. So I think we are in a position to be smart, to be wise, and to make a decision in the interest of the country. I just pray and hope that whatever decision is made, that our people embrace the decision and we come together and work together to see how we could get through these times. The world is complex. This is just one storm. There are other storms to come, and we have to take lessons from this one. And I do hope quickly that that it means that there are some policy issues that we have to attend to. All right. And I, for example, just want to advise the whole area for reverse migration policy needs to be augmented a bit more. Population policy has to be given some more impetus now and some more incentive. So there's this is teaching us there are some other policy issues that we have to attend to, because it's open up other areas of challenge. And that requires also structural reform for our country. So I'm hoping for the best, and I'm hoping to hear some good news soon, so that we as a people can rally behind our government as together we confront these challenges times, and let us maximize whatever opportunities, bearing in mind the downside risk, let us maximize whatever opportunity this situation presented itself. Yeah, so thanks a lot, Kellon, for Dr. Bob, for having me on the program, and I look forward to more programs like this. Yeah, but I think closing that the issue of America and the geopolitics has been well ventilated. It's time now to move to how do we find solutions, yeah, to addressing our current situations. We have to move there, because we have already ventilated the previous, what the geopolitics and everything else. We have to move beyond, yeah, and come together finding solutions to move forward. So thank you very much for being on the program.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Dr. Fletcher, same question. Have you been formally engaged by the government of Grenada? A lot of the advice that a lot of your articulations here this morning, very extensive, grounded in evidence, grounded in research, grounded in your own lived experience as a diplomat, as a career diplomat. What is the nature of engagement that you've had with the government on this issue? And what advice have you given them in a formal capacity?
Yes, Kalon. Thanks very much for having me, and of course the rest of the panelists on today's program. I think it was really useful, extremely helpful, both from the exchanges that took place with the panelists, as well as the comments made by viewers and listeners. We have traversed some grounds, some territory on this issue. I myself has learned quite a bit from comments made and inputs made by other colleagues. So I think we are on the track now where we in fact ought to encourage the government, and I hope this program played that role in whatever way to get the government to start moving on these matters. Specific to your question as to whether I had any formal interaction and provide any formal advice, not at this stage. I have not been formally providing any sound advice to the government on this matter.
Have you been asked? They've not asked you with all of these diplomatic machinations that's happening. They have not reached out to career diplomats like yourself.
I have had, like Dr. Gilchrist, we have had some measured discussions, not to the extent that certainly I'm not sure whether Dr. Gilchrist did, has provided, to underline the word, formal correspondence, inwards information to the government as to how to proceed. But some of the issues here were shared, and I hope it will land in the right places and be form part of the negotiated agreement going forward. Having said that, I just want to end the program by indicating again, thanks for allowing the opportunity, and to make the following points. We are living in very tumultuous times. Things are changing, and things are changing rapidly. The immigration landscape globally will never be the same, whether in Europe, the United States of America, Asia, it will never be the same. Our role is to understand the great power politics under which we are operating today, and to devise best strategies to be able to leverage where we are, to make best use of the resources that we have. In fact, I do believe that if this period that we are going through is grabbed as an opportunity, much can be done for the development of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and indeed the Caribbean. If these policies coming from outside of Grenada pushes us to look internally, I think that will be for the good for every one of us. Let us look more internally. Let us leverage the resources that we have, make use of it, get into expand the agricultural sector, expand the digital economy, expand the cultural sectors, and grow Grenada. So it's an opportunity for us to look internally. It's also an opportunity for us to look for our people in the diaspora. We have highly qualified, high net worth people in the diaspora. Let us encourage them to look at Grenada as an investment opportunity. Let us encourage them to look at Grenada as a place to reside again, to come back home, to make their skill sets available so that Grenada could be a better place 5, 10 years from now. So it is an opportunity for us. Finally, I want to remind us all that we must step back from the dehumanizing of such persons that are due to be repatriated to third countries. They are all not criminals. We have had our own experiences as a people. We have had friends and families that migrated, that overstayed their visas, and then worked their way into legal status. If they were not given that opportunity, if they were seized off the streets, off their workplaces, in an immigration interview center, what would we want for them? How would we like them to exist? right? Probably coming to Grenada will allow those who did not have an opportunity in the US to state where their place of preference would be. Probably coming here will give them that opportunity. And we will be able to, with our humanistic approach to things, allow such people to make connections with their family in their home country and to be repatriated to those countries. So let us open up on this and let us stop the closed approach we have of being frightened away. Let us push back on this issue that all who is coming are criminals sent from a prison to Grenada. Let us not do that. And we know that we have a history in this country that when non-Grenadians arrive in this country, we assimilate them. We become friends with them. We even establish families with them many, many a times. So let us move forward in that vein. And again, thank you very much. And I hope to engage the policymakers much more in the next week, in the next few days, into helping to shape the policy and influence the policy. Once I am called on that table, I will be willing to participate and contribute.
I like the compassionate tone you've set in your closing, and I really hope and pray that and wish that we would do the same for our Haitian brothers and sisters. I just have to say that because I am sick and tired of the prejudice that our Haitian brothers and sisters are confronted with in the Caribbean, especially what our Haitian brothers and sisters have done more historically for us, for our own dignity as Black people, as any of those European colonizers did. I visited Haiti, and I made a point of ensuring of visiting Haiti when I did, right? Because, you know, you hear all of these negative stereotypes about Haiti. I had an amazing time when I visited Haiti. Some of my best friends are Haitian, and they are some of the most amazing, hardworking people. And Haiti is not a victim of its own circumstances, but a victim of colonization and neoliberalism. Sorry, the professor came out, but I just had to make that point in closing. But gentlemen, thank you.
Well accepted, Dr. Bob.
Yes. Thank you,
well
gentlemen.
Accepted.
Thank you. Brother Conda?
We love you.
Yes, absolutely.
David Rudder.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. Correct. Gentlemen, thank you so much again. Viewers and listeners, this has been yet another edition of the Bob Report, and we thank our audience again for your spirited participation, your spirited conversations. In the comment section, we want to thank our panelists as well. Earlier, we had Mr. Peter Wickham on the program. We want to thank him as well. As you know, Prime Minister Mia Mottley, she rang the bell over there in Barbados. We'll see whether red or yellow is the code. I mean, I don't like to get down in that sort of superficial way of thinking about the politics, but we'll see if Mia Mottley would be able to make history by winning a third term there as Prime Minister in Barbados. Very surprised that the election was called when it did. So again, on behalf of the producers of the program, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellan Bubb, wishing everyone a pleasant week, and we will see you next week for another installment of the Bubb Report. Thank you, and remember to like, subscribe, and share. For those of you following us on YouTube, today we were up to 515 people on the YouTube page. Please just hit that like button. Just hit that like button so that the algorithm will do its thing and share the program with others. Just hit that subscribe bell so you're not missing another update from the Bubb Report. So again, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellan Bubb, wishing all of you a pleasant week ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve.
Hi, everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.